AITA for giving my ring back after my fiancé made a comment to his guy friends regarding why we haven't gotten married. My fiancé and I, both 30, have been together for 8 years and engaged for 4 years. We got engaged right before COVID really hit, and obviously that put a huge halt on any sort of planning, and then from there forward, life events halted it more, became homeless, ended up pregnant and having our child. Now we are back on our feet but not financially where we could be yet. Back roughly 5 months ago, I brought up marriage and basically approached the idea of having a backyard wedding and a potluck. Basically going cheap, because I don't really care so much about the wedding or price or whatever. I just want to wear a pretty dress and have all eyes on me and get married to the love of my life. I don't care about the expensive bells and whistles. When I brought it up, he told me that that wouldn't be a bad idea and that we could probably try planning for July-ish 2025. Okay, but we haven't really talked about it since that point, as other shit came up. Here's the issue though. Back about a month ago we were down to our neighbor's home, people who have grown to be really good friends since we moved here 1.5 years ago. I was hanging out with the neighbor's wife and her best friend. My fiancé was hanging out with a group of 3 to 4 guys, having beers and working on vehicles. Well, one of the guys there was talking about his wife and said once you get married, everything fucking stops. I overheard in the middle of the conversation, so I have no idea what stops during marriage, but it was a negative comment regardless. But anyways, my fiancé then starts laughing and goes, "That's why I've been dragging my feet on marriage," and the guys just laughed and said, "Don't do it, man. It's a trap, etc., etc." It really hurt me, but I figured it was just locker room talk and tried my best to move on. But I couldn't let it go. It sat in the back of my head. So a couple weeks ago I brought up getting married again and just ran some ideas by him on simple things, like what he saw our wedding colors being. And he shut down a bit and said something to the effect of, "I think we need to weigh the pros and cons of being married first," and shut down the conversation. Instant plunge to my gut, honestly. So I walk outside to calm myself down, but I just couldn't shake it honestly. So I went back inside and calmly handed him my ring back and asked him what he wanted for dinner. I didn't want to make a big deal, so there was no yelling, no crying, nothing. I was calm and moved on. But he instantly asked me what I was doing and why I gave the ring back. So I mentioned his comment to his buddies about dragging his feet, and now his comments about needing to wait and weigh the pros and cons before going through with anything, and told him I don't want to wait, nor do I want to get my hopes up for a marriage that he's clearly changed his mind about, so I would rather he have the ring back and go into this without the sound of wedding bells in my head. Let's just move on, basically. We can still be together, but I don't want my hopes up. Well, he got extremely defensive. Started saying, "I'm not saying it's not going to happen," or "You're being extreme for no reason."
Am I the asshole for telling my GF she's selfish after I told her I may leave her parents' birthday party early and most likely breaking up with her after the ensuing fight we had? Hey, so I'm a surgical nurse. Sometimes my schedule is awesome and sometimes it can get busy. It's a part of the job, ha. Anyways, it hasn't really affected much about our relationship so far. I attend all of her family events and gatherings I get invited to, and we spend a lot of time together during the week or weekend both. I always find time to be with her. Now next weekend is her parents' birthday party on Saturday. I've been working a lot these past 2 weeks, but that's mainly because I asked for a couple days off during that weekend and on Friday too, so we can help with prep if needed. Today I woke up to a call from my boss. My coworker's mom suddenly died. I'm 28, this coworker is around 30. Her mom was still a young, healthy woman, but they were out by a swimming pool and she had a heart attack if I understood it correctly. They did CPR on her with paramedics for an hour, but unfortunately it didn't help. My boss asked me to come in this Wednesday instead of this coworker. I said yes, of course, that's not an issue, give her all the time she needs to grieve. This coworker also has a Sunday shift, and I said in case no one can take that shift, we are seriously understaffed. I can come in, but I'll be after the party, so maybe a bit tired, ha. It could work, I just have to leave the party early, which starts in the afternoon. Like I would leave around midnight, take a couple hours of sleep. But since that call, my GF was cold to me, telling me there's no way I'm taking Sunday shift, etc. I tried to explain there's only a very minimal chance I will have to, but in case I have to, I will obviously cover for this person. This coworker is one of the few people that always help me when I needed help. Whole morning was terrible. She was angry and I told her she's being selfish. That stuff like this happens and we need be at least a bit empathetic. Then she went off at me saying my boss isn't stupid for doing what she can to keep me from leaving for a different hospital. Because I'm always ready to come and work and I'm always doing all the work that has to be done at work without complaining, etc. Basically calling me a pushover, which I'm very far from. I'm pretty well respected by all the senior doctors because I speak my mind always and stand up for myself and others. After listening to this and arguing about me helping someone whose mom just died, I got angry too. Told her I got enough of this selfish behavior. This isn't the first time she's like this. For example, we only been to 2 events on my family side, and both times I saw my brothers after a long time and we would be having fun and she keep hurrying me to go home. And then she would make a scene in front of my family because at 6 p.m. I wanted to stay an hour longer. Then she wanted to leave my place. And so I just said, okay, I'm done dealing with this, and let her leave. I haven't been responding to her texts since, but she's saying she feels like anything she does is always bad in my eyes, etc. And I was just thinking, did I overreact? TLDR. Am I the asshole for calling her selfish after she got mad? I said I will cover a shift for a coworker whose mom died unexpectedly. Did I overreact?
I got a message a few months ago from the guy I had the most massive crush on through junior and senior high, and maybe on into my 20s. We go together shortly before Christmas. We also spent New Year's Eve together. I haven't been with anybody other than Mr. Right now for the past 7 years since my fiancé died. He has been single since a very messy breakup with his ex 5 years ago. We're both out of practice with this dating thing. We've also both spent a lot of time and energy on introspection in those years. I know that I'm in a very healthy place to start dating again. I believe he is as well. We had a couple of conversations about topics that we both would have probably lied about and hidden in the past from other partners. Instead of doing that, on Saturday I addressed the topic that I knew was a concern of his directly with him. I was honest and open. The topic was addressed and we moved on. Then this afternoon he did the same for me. I even said, look at us. Healthy communication. We're so grown up. We're both in our 40s. We laughed about it, but then we both agreed that poor communication had been an issue in past relationships. There have been a couple of other instances where we have communicated really openly and honestly. OMG. It is so sexy. For those of you who are looking for the juicy, salacious details, I'm sorry, I really don't have anything for you yet. We're taking it slow. That doesn't mean I don't want to climb him like tree. We've had a couple of good make-out sessions, a little under the clothes action. It's funny, I feel like we're moving at teenager speeds. And I'm okay with that. I have the intention of having him in my life for a long time. We'll have plenty of time. I'm still nuts about him. I've absolutely told him the extent of my crush. I even played the song that was his song when I was 15 years old. It was a very vulnerable moment. I still smile when he texts and calls. Like when I just go off the phone with him. However, I have been actively trying to separate the actual person he is from the perfect man I created in my head when I was a teenager. It's kind of hard because he keeps getting everything right. I'm really happy.
Am I the asshole for demanding that my GF apologize to my son and refusing to kick him out? I have been with my GF for 3 years. I have a 13-year son, James, and she has an 11-year-old son, Mark. Mark and James have different bedtimes. Mark goes to bed at 8 and James goes to bed at 9. Mark also has severe ADHD, autism, and a lot of emotional regulation problems. Due to his issues, my son isn't particularly fond of him. They butt heads a lot, mainly because my son doesn't think that they get fair treatment and usually is surrounding bedtime. Mark often fights us to go to sleep, and by the time we finally get him to stop throwing a tantrum, it's around 8:45. James feels that he should be able to stay up later because Mark is awake until 8:45, which is 45 minutes past his bedtime. So at that point, James runs his mouth nearly every night about it not being fair to him and that you should be able to stay up 45 minutes later. However, this also happens even when it takes only 10 minutes to get Mark in bed. James gets pissed off, runs his mouth, and says he should be able to stay up an hour later because Mark was in bed at 8 p.m. when he was supposed to be. My son can be a dink sometimes when it comes to running his mouth, and he's been spoken to so many times, grounded more often than he should be as well because he is disrespectful when running his mouth. So in no way am I commenting his shit behavior here. I've been trying to correct it, but he's a kid and he's just being an ass. Anyway, at 8:15 last night, my GF was trying to get Mark down for bed, and it's becoming a problem because it's just a bad night. James goes into Mark's room where my GF was and says, so I'm staying up an hour later then. My GF says, no, you're not actually. Get out. This sends Mark into a conniption because now he thinks James is staying up an hour later because James is running his mouth and Mark doesn't process information the same way we do. So it sends Mark into a new round of fits. James didn't leave the room and instead says, tell me how this is fair. Explain this to me. Why is he staying up every day and night but I can't? My GF again told him to leave the room. I go in and before I can even open my mouth, James says something under his breath and my GF loses her shit. I have never seen her be anything other than a kind, overly patient woman, so this was a complete shock to the system. She screams, get the fuck out and mind your own fucking business. James immediately shuts up and walks out, but apparently that wasn't enough because she just snapped. Again, this is not normal. She followed him out into the hallway and said, better yet, pack your fucking shit. You're no longer welcome in my house. Go back to your mom's. I step in completely, told James he is once again grounded from everything and to go to his room, and then told my GF to step outside and calm down. She is still flipping out at this point and says, if that kid is still in my fucking house by the time I come back in here, then I will call the cops and have him removed. I am so fucking tired of that little puke disrespecting me and you doing jack shit to stop it. She goes outside. I go talk to James, tell him he's out of line, and this will be the last time he opens his mouth to run it. When my GF comes back in, I tell her she needs to go apologize to my son and that he will not be moving out actually. She says, I will evict you if he doesn't leave. Actually, no, I think you need to leave anyways. I'm fucking done. She told my sister today that she truly wants both of us gone and took off for the day with her and her kid and told me I had better be out of her house before she returns. I have nowhere to go and don't plan to leave, but I still think she's being ridiculous. Am I the asshole for refusing to kick my son out and demanding she apologize to my son? As I boarded flight 752, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. It was a typical Tuesday with passengers bustling to find their seats, stow their luggage, and settle in for the journey. But as the flight progressed, something extraordinary happened that I will never forget. About an hour into the flight, a sudden jolt startled everyone. The plane shook violently, and a chorus of gasps filled the cabin. Panic began to set in among the passengers. That's when I noticed an older gentleman in the row across from me calmly reaching into his bag. He pulled out a small, unremarkable-looking device and started fiddling with it. I watched puzzled as he seemed completely unfazed by the commotion around him. The flight attendants were rushing through the aisles trying to reassure passengers, but the turbulence only seemed to worsen. Then the gentleman stood up, steadying himself against the shaking cabin, and made his way to the front of the plane. He spoke briefly with a flight attendant who looked at him skeptically at first, but then nodded gravely. He disappeared into the cockpit with the pilots. The minutes that followed were tense. Whispers and speculations spread among the passengers. Who was this man? What was he doing? I felt a mix of fear and curiosity. Suddenly, the turbulence stopped, the plane stabilized, and the overhead announcements came on thanking us for our patience and explaining that we had experienced a rare but severe atmospheric disturbance. As we landed safely, I'd overheard a flight attendant talking to a colleague. The man, it turned out, was a retired aerospace engineer. He had recognized the symptoms of a specific kind of engine malfunction. Due to his years of experience using his improvised device, he had helped the pilots adjust the engine settings, preventing what could have been a disastrous situation. He returned to his seat as if nothing had happened, refusing any kind of fuss or attention. Most passengers were unaware of the role he had played, but I couldn't shake the feeling of awe and gratitude. It's incredible how a single person's knowledge and calmness in a crisis can make such a difference. As I disembarked, I caught a glimpse of the man quietly collecting his belongings, an unsung hero, a guardian angel in plain clothes who had saved us all on Flight 752.